Rochelle, what's your reading on what you? I could see you kind of mad to join in. You're going to
I agree with everything that's been said. I suppose you asked about stats earlier on, so I don't know if people are aware, but there was a study done in 2007, and it indicated that Ireland had the highest alcohol intake of Europe. So I don't know if anyone knows what percentage of the Irish population drink. Anyone to have a guess? Anyone? What was that? Well, it's 80% of Irish people drink alcohol. So it's higher than the European average, which is 75%. So we're not
80% above what age now?
That's just across the board. That's the Irish people, the population. Okay, that's over 18. Okay, so technically speaking, it should be over 18. However, they did also look in terms of, as well, in terms of binge drinking. So a quarter of all Irish adults reported binge drinking. So just again,
so just to be clear,
that's 80% of adults over 18. Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of then binge drinking, a quarter of Irish adults were seen to binge drink. So a lot of people, when they come into clinic to me, and we talk, alcohol is a pervasive issue with all the clinic adults that I would see across. I see people in terms of sport, but also high cholesterol, heart disease, you name it. But alcohol is always a running theme in terms of people's diets. But in terms of binge drinking, when I explain to people what binge is, any idea what a binge would be considered to be? Anyone in the panel here, ideas or anyone here? So it's 5 standard drinks, okay? And if anyone has an idea what a standard drink is, it's a half pint, okay? So 5 standard drinks is 2.5 pints. That is a binge. I think if you asked anybody on a sporting team who went after a match and described a binge, it wouldn't be 2.5 pints. So it's quite a common thing for me when I have adult athletes coming in, and rugby, GA in particular, and I agree in terms of there is research to show that team sports are very much linked with alcohol intake. That easily some of the rugby players are taking, 40, 60 standard drinks a week. Some of the GA players as well. So we're talking like 20 to 40 pints a week. So one of the things I wanted to sort of say is in terms of the influences on drinking in the younger group, kids and teenagers are affected by their peers, for one, which I think everyone was sort of saying in terms of the pressure, but also parents have a big influence in terms of how kids eat and drink. So I think we sort of have responsibility, both as you say, coaches, parents, and also friends as well, in terms of identifying if there are any problems on the alcohol side of things with kids. It's also shown that in this study that basically was shown that in the 18 to 29-year-old group, alcohol intake was beginning to decrease, but actually it was increasing in the 18 to 23-year-old group, and that they were most concerned about underage drinking trends in Ireland, with a third of Irish teens between the age of 15 and 17 having been drunk in the previous month. Okay, a third of 15 to 17-year-olds were drunk in the previous month. They also did research where they asked teenage students, to rank the top topics they found most interesting in terms of their health and their well-being. And number 1 was alcohol. Number 2 was puberty. Number 3 was drugs. And number 4 was being really drunk. Okay, so they were the questions they were asking. Then it was smoking, fighting, your health, body image, physical health, emotional health, happy with life, close friends. So number 2 of the things in the top 4 are alcohol related. So the kids are actually responding and saying, we want answers, we want help. So Susan asked, what can we do to help? I think things like tonight are very important. I think workshops with kids. I think Caroline sort of mentioned there, kids have a different emotional intelligence, or in fact they don't even know how to express their emotions, so we have to sort of adapt to their language and listen to them more. So I think there's definitely a lot of issues around. We tend to sort of sweep it under the carpet in terms of underage drinking, and we all know, and the stats show, that it's happening.
When you say that it's what kids are talking about, does that mean that they're talking about it in the sense that it's inevitable I'm going to get caught up in this thing, or are they sort of open to the merits one way or the other at a certain age?
It's obviously reflecting that it's a pressure out there, and they're wondering how to cope with it. how do they deal with drinking, how do they say no. I know from my own experience, certainly in hockey, again, as you say, everything was celebrated around sort of pub settings. But I think the GA is fantastic, like with the Irish Hockey Association. Sport is a great way to get kids out of trouble. But I think within that sporting association, one of the things you mentioned there about drinking companies sponsoring, it's actually, there's research to show that boys are particularly influenced by broadcast media and girls by both broadcast and print media. And I'm a member of the Irish Nutrition and Dietetics Institute, and we're always trying to lobby against the marketing of foods in particular. Maybe not so much the alcohol, but obviously alcohol is an issue as well. And kids are affected by what they see, what they read, as well as what their friends are doing as well.
Okay, so it does matter to them then,
yes,
sponsoring a particular competition.
Yeah, it is part of the mix of pressures.
Okay, talk a bit about the physical impact that what you put into your body can have on you in terms of, say, alcohol, and in terms of, say, things like, supplements as well. I know it's an area you want to
well, I think in terms of the effect on the body, alcohol has numerous effects. So one is, a lot of people probably know that alcohol basically kills your brain cells. So obviously one of the knock-on effects on that is concentration. So obviously for everybody, but teenagers, big impact is going to be in concentration in school, as well as on the pitch. So your concentration will be affected, your decision skills are going to be affected, your reaction times are going to be affected on the pitch through being things like dehydrated. So alcohol will make you pee more, so it's going to dehydrate you, and then this has this effect of affecting your concentration. The other thing is that the research would show that if you have binge drink, if you exercise within 24 hours afterwards, it's going to affect your recovery. So your muscles don't take up the glucose as effectively. It also slows down recovery of muscle injuries, exacerbates muscle injuries. So there's lots of reasons. I get lots of guys that say, I was injured, I was able to sort of enjoy in the bar. And I say, well, the whole thing, and I know for myself playing at international level that, all you want to do is play. That's all you want to do. So the last thing you want to do is get injured. So I'm always saying to young and over 18 athletes that alcohol has a big impact on recovery. The other thing is cramps, because when you're dehydrated, you pee out lots of salts in the body, so that's going to affect cramping. And obviously, again, you won't have to be taken off the pitch. That's the last thing you want as an athlete. You just want to play to the end. The other thing is in terms of alcohol intake, it affects your eating habits. So people will often say, and I see this time and time again, if they're hungover, the body craves higher fat foods, salty foods, so it tends to be that the wrong type of foods come out, and it's not just for the 24 hours afterwards, it's shown with research to affect eating habits up to 4 days afterwards. So that means it's affecting your training sessions as well. So there's huge implications in terms of alcohol use. It affects the liver, obviously. We know we can't regrow the liver cells if they get extremely damaged. It's shown in young people that if they start drinking habits early, that it's definitely going to have detrimental effects later on in life. So the other thing is a lot of people don't realise that excessive alcohol drinking, it basically damages the gut, so we start getting ulcers and things like that as well. So it's huge, but the thing about kids or teenagers is they have no sense of mortality. So kind of telling them, some of the things like it's going to kill your brain cells or whatever, it's probably not going to have as much of an impact. But in terms of sporting impact, for those kids who really want to see performance improve, then the alcohol is definitely not going to be helping that.
Yeah. And Edmund, you'd probably pick up on that point as well, just in terms of your career. You're 18 years this year in the senior jersey for Sligo. Do you think you'd have been 18 years if you had been drinking along the way?
No, definitely not, Michael. I've seen guys coming and they were better footballers than me, and there's just down the path of trying to mix both sport and drinking and everything else that goes with it. And as I said there about their ability to recover from injuries, it just wasn't there. And from pulling a hamstring, which probably takes up to 2, 3, 4 weeks, they were all of a sudden going from 7, 8, 9 weeks and not being able to get back, and then losing out the level of fitness and the fitness work that may have been done. So for me, I suppose I would be very, very lucky. I've had a few serious enough type of injuries, but I was always able to bounce back from them because I looked after myself as best as I could. But I know some guys that just they retired at 27, 28 and even earlier because it just just couldn't balance both sides.